Thanks for joining us. We're glad to have you with us. You've just announced this statewide investigation and issued 6 civil investigative demands into companies that make or sell kratom. These products are often sold next to candy or supplements in gas stations, maybe in a smoke shop somewhere. The FDA has not regulated this product. Kratom sellers argue that these products can help people come off of their opioid addiction. What evidence do you have that might contradict those claims?
We have actual complaints from medical examiners around the state and from parents who've lost children. And it's kratom and it's 7-OH. Both are derived from the same plant. 7-OH has a much greater intensity to it and probably is the more dangerous of the two. But this is truly an investigation, so we want to hear from the people who grow and distribute kratom and how we can let them do that safely. 7-OH, there's no question about it, it's probably more addictive than opioids.
Law enforcement protocols, for as long as I've covered them, have usually said investigations happen in private and then charges or filings come out in public. How do you weigh that?
Well, the one time that you can go public is when you think that there is a real threat to the public and you're trying to deliver a message. And we absolutely are trying to deliver a message to Missourians that these are highly addictive, highly intoxicating products and that they should avoid them. And particularly 7-OH, the evidence is very clear there. And I've had people reach out to me directly, some very prominent people who said their child was clean and sober for some time period and then walked into a store and bought this product and now is back in rehab. So we're trying to also educate the public as we're doing this investigation. We think it's a real present threat right now.
Are you acting in the absence of the federal government? Do you think the FDA should step in?
I think you're going to see action from the FDA. I think it's coming, I would say, in the next.
In your news release announcing this action from your office, you said this office exists to safeguard the public. When businesses peddle unregulated addictive substances and hide the risks, they violate the trust of Missouri consumers. I wonder if you would apply that same hard line to illegal gambling machines that are operating openly in gas stations, in VFW halls, and in bars across Missouri. Candidates who ran for the office that you now hold pledged hard action, like seizure, forcefully removing these machines from some of these places. Have you taken any action at all to enforce the laws that ban these illegal gaming machines?
So you must be reading our press releases ahead. You must have some drafts of our press releases because that is the next initiative. I see this as like 3 buckets. Kratom, 7-OH, and then hemp-derived products in 1 bucket. Video lottery machines in the 2nd bucket. The 3rd bucket is Bitcoin ATMs. Almost all of those show up in convenience stores, so in some ways I'm kind of calling this the C-Store initiative. But what I'm really concerned about is these 3 are multi-billion-dollar industries that are being operated outside the law, not taxed, and I'm very concerned that we're going to start to get a real organized crime problem here in Missouri if we don't go aggressively against all 3.
Former state senator and the former senator pro tem Dave Schatz has referred to these video gaming machines as organized crime, and he notes that some of the donors and lobbyists close to it were big Republican power players in Missouri. You know some of them. So are you telling us right now that by this time next year there will be fewer illegal gaming machines in Missouri than there are today?
I hope so. And we're actually coordinating quite closely with other law enforcement agencies. I mean, part of the problem
including federal or local?
Including everybody that we can possibly get to say yes. Let's put it that way. Part of the problem is I can't go. The Attorney General's office cannot bust into a place and take the gaming machines.
Why not?
Because we're not the Gaming Commission and we're not local prosecutors.
Who's going to stop you?
So, well, they'll just object, right? And I don't have a police force, right? I would need the highway patrol or local police, and they don't want to do anything that's unlawful. So part of this is me evangelizing against them and getting other law enforcement agencies to cooperate.
Do you have any partners in the legislature who could spur action there?
Yeah, I think there's going to be quite a bit of legislation on it this year, and I think, and I should be careful about this, but I think you're going to see a little less opposition to getting them regulated this year. But I talked to someone else in law enforcement who said they were in a Friendly's in South County, Friendly's Burger Joint, walked back to the bathroom. There was a whole secret room where people were playing these machines and smoking. I mean, if we continue to let this go on, it's a very dangerous precedent of people just like giving the finger to law enforcement. And I'm sorry to be so crass, but that's what they're doing. They're just illegally operating and no one cares. I told this law enforcement person, I said, well, just go enforce the smoking ban and you'll get rid of them. But, you know.
Well, I think there was a story about that in the Missouri Capitol not long ago surrounding a lobbyist. Okay, last question on this, because you've been around for a while. You were the Speaker of the Missouri House. You were a federal prosecutor. You're now the Attorney General in Missouri. What's taken so long to enforce this pretty easy-to-read law?
Well, there have been some enforcement actions, and the quality of lawyering on behalf of the video lottery machines has been very, very good. They've been able to hire the very best lawyers in the country, but they just lost a lawsuit here in the Eastern District of Missouri. It's very valuable precedents for those of us who want to shut these machines down or force them into a regulated environment.
Are you telling me that our legal system is more advantageous if you're wealthy?
I'm saying good lawyers matter.
Good lawyers matter. Okay, well, I think someone in your office should hopefully say that. We're also following your office's push to expel Sheriff Alfred Montgomery very closely. We may see a decision anytime, perhaps tomorrow, so I'm not going to ask you to opine on the outcome while it's still pending. I do want to ask you about the arguments that we heard in court. Lawyers in your office argued in open court that it does not matter if the intent of the case was inherently political. That as long as you can prove your case, that's it. It's allowed. Was it political?
Well, it was not political, and that certainly wasn't the substance of the allegations that we made against him. We accused him, as we have other public officials, of abusing the powers of his office and neglecting the duties of his office. He falsely arrested someone. He wasn't transporting prisoners for medical care. That was the substance of our case. I'm guessing that answer was given in response to some question, and it's a truthful statement, but it wasn't the motivation for the case.
The defense tried to paint the prosecution itself as political, and I think it was in response to that, for the full context. Some of these actions were triggered before you got into office. You inherited a lot of balls that were already in play, ongoing litigation. One case that your predecessor said he'd take a look at, Andrew Bailey told us he'd take a look at, was this nepotism complaint against County Councilman Dennis Hancock, a Republican. Prosecutor Wesley Bell filed a quo warranto, the same proceeding against Alfred Montgomery, to expel him just before he left to take his job in Congress. The evidence included documents and phone call audio recordings where Hancock openly discussed hiring his stepdaughter for a job in government, which clearly violates the state's ban on nepotism. In the Montgomery case, your office has argued that's a hard line you can't cross, immediate expulsion. Why hasn't your office brought those charges against Dennis Hancock, a Republican?
So I totally love that question from this perspective. Wesley Bell's office did file the quo. And one of my objectives, look, there's so many crimes happening.
His successor dismissed it.
Well, but Wesley filed it, and then his successor made a judgment about it. There's so many crimes happening in Missouri, we have to leverage every resource we have. So literally yesterday, I was over a meeting with federal authorities and said, hey, are you investigating this and this and this? Okay, great. If you got those, I'm going to move on to these other things. I've had similar conversations with Gabe Gore and Melissa Price Smith.
It's a divide and conquer. You have to pick
Absolutely.
your priorities.
And let me tell you, it's so refreshing, because when I was U.S. Attorney, there were so many turf battles, and we were duplicating efforts and fighting over cases. This is like a breath of fresh air, and I think it's why we're actually going to make a dent in violent crime in the city, because the governor, the mayor, the U.S. Attorney, the elected prosecutors, the police chief, myself, we all get along great, and we're talking to each other.
Interesting. I'd like to be a fly on the wall for some of those conversations.
I bet you would.
Guilty. Your office has filed a criminal indictment against County Executive Sam Page, a Democrat, accusing him of a misdemeanor crime for the persuasive language he tried to use in that Prop B mailer campaign. I know you're a voter in St. Louis County. Yep. And also accusing him of a felony for stealing county funds to pay for the postage to send those mailers out. Page announced Thursday morning he's no longer seeking re-election. Are you going to continue this criminal indictment?
Well, obviously we have to reevaluate circumstances as they develop. We did not have any conversation with him prior to I learned about it in the papers. So there's no deal on the table? There's no deal on the table. But, it is a changed circumstance. We think we have a very strong case. We continue to think we have a very strong case. So
So your lawyers will be in court on Friday afternoon in
Oh,
Greene
yeah,
County?
absolutely, 100%.
You're also in court fighting to protect the GOP-drawn map, the congressional lines that
The
all but...
legislative drawn map.
Correct,
Yeah.
that the House and Senate drew in the middle of the decade that would have
Yeah.
the effect of all but deleting a Democratic stronghold, a seat in Congress. Are you doing this because you think it's the right thing for the state or because your political party wants it?
Neither. I'm doing this because I took an oath of office that said I would uphold the law. This is a law passed by the legislature. This is fundamentally what the Attorney General does every day. We defend the laws of the state of Missouri. We defend state employees. And in this case, there are a number of constitutional issues that are critically important. So I also swore to uphold the Constitution and defend the Constitution. This is what I swore I would do.
I'm glad you said that because that same Constitution and those same laws give voters an option.
No.
And as you know,
They don't. With respect to drawing congressional districts, the U.S. Constitution delegates that authority exclusively to the people's representatives.
So you're saying that there is no path for voters to have a recall petition to strike down or veto that legislative action. That doesn't exist?
Nope, doesn't exist in Missouri. Some other states have delegated that power to commissions or perhaps to the voters. It hasn't happened in Missouri.
It hasn't happened. I don't know that. Has there ever been a time when Missouri has tried to draw maps in the middle of a decade?
Yes. And a couple of occasions.
A wartime example.
And we've cited those cases. And the Constitution just says you have to do it at least every decade. There's no prohibition on doing it mid-decade.
So hundreds of thousands of voters disagree with you because they've signed these petitions to try and veto those map lines. They have this group called People Not Politicians. You've painted them as a dark money group from out of state. The dark money part is accurate, but you're not claiming the voters who signed the petitions themselves are from out of state.
I get very concerned when you have that kind of a signature gathering effort that voters might not have the full information. I know the person who approached me at my polling place about signing it, I thought really mischaracterized what it was, and I simply said, look, I don't think what you're doing is constitutional, thank you, and went in and voted.
And just to be clear, you're also not claiming that it's illegal for donors who don't live in Missouri to give money to politicians who run for office in Missouri?
No, I absolutely am not claiming that. It is illegal for people who live outside the United States, organizations organized outside the United States, to try to have an influence on the outcome of an issue campaign like this.
But you're not alleging that foreign actors are involved here?
We have a number of ongoing investigations. No, I'm not making that allegation.
So I think you've already answered this question, but I want to be clear. Are you working to defend the laws in the Constitution or partisan advantage?
Laws in the Constitution.
The partisan advantage just comes on the side?
My job, and that's, I think, what is a little bit different about how I've approached this whole thing is that I do see it as a job, and there are so many like core functions to it. Defending the Constitution and the laws of the state of Missouri is one of them. Defending Missourians from getting ripped off in consumer fraud cases, reducing violence, but I'm working the list.
Last question on this. Would you object to all out-of-state influences on Missouri's maps or just the ones that help Democrats? Because as you know, the president was quite involved in this process.
Did you want to, you sort of answered your own question, right?
Well, the question is, do you object to out-of-state actors?
Well, first of all, you couldn't do that. The U.S. Constitution allows people from other states to contribute to work on matters between states, so it's sort of a moot question.
So your painting of this group as an out-of-state group is more political rhetoric than it is legal argument?
Well, it's concern that people who are not Missourians are having an influence, and I want Missourians to have their eyes wide open. I think that's critically important.
I want to shift to this other issue. After your office took action to protect children from sexual exploitation, the adult video website Pornhub shut down its operation in Missouri. They don't want to comply with rules that would require users to upload their ID to some database and check who they are. If the goal is to protect kids from exploitation, do you think this outcome achieves that goal?
Well, yeah, because it's age verification, right? And so I'm
them
not
shutting
sure.
down. How does that protect kids? How does that make kids safer?
There's no shortage of porn websites that people can go to. I'm shocked that Pornhub would pull out. just because we ask them to verify that people are 18 years old. Like, is your big market kids? Like, it really should not inhibit their business.
I think some of the critics of this policy wonder about state censorship of decency and indecency and drawing the line there.
We're not saying that adults can't view all the porn that they want. The only things that we say are kids can't look at porn and kids can't be in the porn. That's it. Adults can do whatever they want.
To that second question, I think that was the one I understood your office to be most focused on. Perhaps both are true. How does that outcome of one web provider going dark in Missouri achieve the outcome of protecting kids from being actually exploited physically?
That wasn't our purpose.
Or is there further work to do on that front?
It's free enterprise. Yeah, we do work on that all the time. When I was U.S. Attorney, I prosecuted more child exploitation cases than any other office in the country except Los Angeles. That means more than New York City, Houston. We're going to continue those priorities in the AG's office. But an adult porn site pulling out because they don't want to require people to prove that they're 18 is crazy.
Was that the result you were pursuing?
No, not at all. And in fact, we spent quite a bit of time working with the technology companies. I don't know that we worked directly with the purveyors of porn, but we tried to make it as least restrictive as possible and still protect kids.
What would the state have done with that data? Or what will the state do with that?
The state is not collecting it.
It's held by the internet service provider?
Yes.
And accessible with a warrant, or?
That's a complicated question. You really have to have, probable cause to get a warrant. It's hard to have probable cause that has, when you go to an internet service provider.
But you want the red flag, you want to be visible. How is the red flag visible unless you have a warrant, right?
Well, depends what the red flag is. If it's
the lack of age verification, or
if it's a minor trying to get on, they're just going to be foreclosed from getting on.
Right.
I can only imagine issuing them a warrant if we have probable cause to suspect that a crime's been involved.
I see. I want to shift to another case that you also inherited. Your office sued Starbucks, alleging that it racially discriminates against white job applicants in Missouri and that the company's diversity goals and incentive structures amount to illegal race and sex-based discrimination. Starbucks denies all this, and they've asked the courts to dismiss. We haven't seen any pending action on that quite yet. Can you name one specific white job seeker in Missouri who was denied a job at Starbucks based on their race?
Nope. I can't, because I came to the office after this case was filed. I haven't been in the weeds on this case. I'm sure that we have some pretty persuasive evidence, or we wouldn't have filed.
100 days in, can you say that this case is the best use of your job's priorities and time?
Well, I haven't been talking about it. I haven't put it on that list of priorities. I'm not saying we're not going to pursue this case. If there is evidence that Starbucks, and I believe there is, has been discriminating on the basis of race and gender, we're going to pursue that case until we get a resolution.
Okay, so I'll step away from the litigation question to ask you about the message and the words in the legal filing. You once led Missouri to recognize Juneteenth as a state holiday. Now your office is arguing in court in plain writing that efforts to hire more workers of color will, quote, skew the hiring pool toward people who are less qualified. Help our viewers understand how those two positions fit together. What message do you think that sends to voters of color in Missouri?
Well, look, the United States Supreme Court has said quotas are illegal. And it appears
Starbucks says they don't have quotas.
Well, they're walking up to that line. They're hiring based on factors other than merit, and that's our point. Is if you don't have merit as the number one factor, then you probably are not going to get the best people.
So you're saying that efforts to, the case that the state of Missouri brought included hiring demographic numbers, and acknowledges that a lot of the jobs historically that have been filled have left out certain demographics. Is that something that companies or individuals should look to rectify?
I believe that everyone should have the same chance to get a job, and whoever is best qualified should get that job. Whether they're a man or a woman, no matter what their race is, it's the person who can deliver the most for the company, the state government, whoever the employer is.
Taking on this office and this job comes with a lot of duties. It also comes with a few extra ones now. You're the lead attorney for the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department.
Yes.
Where will you draw the line when it comes to public interest and transparency? If, for example, there is a controversial incident involving a police officer, there's body camera, there's dash cam video, what will you release to the public?
I don't think you can have a general rule on that, right?
What guides you?
Some of those, well, the evidence that we'll need to either make or defend a case in court, that will be a strong guiding principle. The circumstances under which that evidence was collected, we don't want to infringe upon the constitutional rights of the victim of a crime, the police officer, the perpetrator of the crime. It's got to be case by case.
What role do you think public disclosure has in building community trust?
I think it has a lot. I really do. And I've tried to be very accessible throughout my career, and I've tried to answer all the hard questions, and I'll continue to be that way.
And I appreciate that here. I understand that sometimes lawyers don't want to commit in advance to releasing video when they don't know the circumstances of the case. So I'm not trying to trick you here, but I do think that our viewers want to know, when will you insist? If you see something so egregious that you think the public deserves to see it, what will that feel like for you? When will you commit to?
But see, that's just it, is I can't make those judgments based on sort of my gut and morality. I've got to make those judgments based on the law and the Constitution. And that really is my job. That's the oath I took, that I'm going to uphold those things. And it's critically important for all those, for the police officer, for the victim of the crime, for the perpetrator of the crime, because I want to get a conviction if somebody's committed a crime. And if I infringe upon their constitutional rights by making something public before it should have been made public, I'm not going to get that conviction. My absolute number one goal is to reduce violence in this community.
I appreciate your time very much. Last question for you. Speaker of the House, federal prosecutor, big corporate attorney, and now Attorney General of the state of Missouri. Where do you rank this job in the degree of difficulty over the course of your career?
Oh, I don't know about difficulty. In terms of sense of purpose, after mom, I'd say it's number 2.
There you go. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.